What's it gonna take for you to understand?
Incoming! Floater incoming!
You don't have to try.
You washed up.
Sorry?
Welcome to the island of discarded women, my friend.
I used to be somebody. Are you that woman on the radio?
Your island job is peladora de papas.
Sorry, what?
Potato peeler, 87% match for your skills.
Okay, that's not. Anyway, what is the second best match then?
Host of the Island Podcast.
Are you kidding me? No, see, that's me. That's perfect for me. That...
I love shining with you.
Well, hey, Dae. How are you?
Hey, Sue. What's up?
Yeah. Well, I'm real quick. I'm trying to find something online on my phone here.
Yeah, like what?
Well, first, I would love to learn a lot more about those 300-year-old people that are still getting Social Security checks.
Oh, I know.
Were you?
Yeah, who knew? What's their secret?
I know. And how come we've never ever heard about them before?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like they don't even exist.
Wow. Because they don't. Hey, have you noticed that there hasn't been a ban recognizing International Women's Day or Women's History Month yet? Which is a little surprising because the word woman is on a list of words that may now flag a review of grant proposals sent to the National Science Foundation.
I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
Okay.
A list of words were recently leaked by someone at the NSF, and the list came with a warning that certain keywords within grant proposals may now be flagged by reviewers as potentially problematic.
Ooh, okay, so potentially problematic,
Right.
meaning anti-DEI stuff, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so here, Dae. Here are some of those potentially problematic words on this list. Just some of them. It's a lot longer than this, but this is some of them.
All right.
Okay, so activism, activist, advocacy, barriers, bias, BIPOC, black, cultural, disabilities, discrimination, diversity, equality, ethnicity, female.
Wait, female?
Female.
Okay.
Fostering, gender, hate speech, inclusion, indigenous, inequalities, LGBTQ, minorities, multicultural, political, prejudice, privileges, race, sexual preferences, social justice, status, stereotypes, systemic, trauma, underappreciated, underserved, victim, and women.
Wow.
No, it's not official yet. But just in case, some researchers are already scrubbing their proposals of these words.
Okay, so instead of female and woman, what would they say?
I don't know.
Double X chromosome?
Okay, that works. And speaking of double X chromosomes, people, I was just reading about the clothing designer in Ukraine, Elvira Gasanov. 99% of the clothes that Zelensky wears are her designs. I mean, the thing he wears all the time. You know, they're olive green or they're black. Right. You know, with the Ukrainian trident on the front, right? And the clothes are casual, but I always think he looks really sharp. Don't you think?
Okay, so that's cool that he gets them from a designer in Ukraine.
Yeah. And since the invasion, now she has had to relocate her production line. And at one point, her family's home was severely damaged by military strikes. Because as she says, we are living this war.
Of course they are.
Now, she sells her men's line of clothes online. And she says that her sales shot up right after that ugly exchange in the Oval Office last Friday.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And most of the sales were from the U.S. Now, she wasn't sure if people were buying the clothes to support Zelensky or if because they got so much focus, they just thought they were cool and then they wanted them themselves, right?
Yeah, well, right? I guess that's one positive thing that came out from that stupid suit question.
Oh my God, that's frickin' suit guy.
I know.
God, you could just tell he was just so ready for that gotcha question, wasn't he? Oh my God, he couldn't wait. He probably practiced in his car a million times. And he was just standing there, just waiting for his cue, and then he was just gonna pounce.
Yeah, well, which he did, and the rest is history.
I know. God bless us all, right?
By the way, Sue.
Yeah.
Are you wearing a hoodie?
I am wearing a hoodie. Yeah. Why?
No. It's just you're usually more dressed up, on show nights.
Yeah. Yeah, I usually am. It's true.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying because you are in front of an audience, who paid money to be here.
Wait a
so
minute.
it's
Are
just
you
like-
suiting me? Are you suiting me right now?
No,
You're totally
Sue,
suiting
it's
me.
just a question. It was just a question.
Okay. Did you read what is on the front of the hoodie?
Okay, let me see. Stand with Ukraine.
Yes.
That's exactly what I love that.
Yes. We are
Yes.
standing up for Ukraine. And we're speaking out against the cruelty and the bullying that is so prevalent right now, right? In this country and around the world. Listen, we have to be dressed to take part in the resistance.
You're right. Of
Yes,
course we do.
Of course we do, right.
Yep.
And now is the time to exercise our power. And I'm sorry, we can't do that by sitting quietly and holding up little paddles with words on them. I'm sorry, Dems, that's just not it, okay? But we need to get on the streets with protest rallies or make calls through 5calls.org or join a local indivisible group or taking local action like with Women's March Minnesota or ERMA Minnesota or Gender Justice, right?
Yes.
I mean, Dae, we can't just stay home anymore and doom scroll Rachel Maddow posts all day long.
No.
Or watch videos over and over again of voters screaming at their elected officials at town halls. Although I would have to say that's very satisfying.
They are.
That is
They kind
very
of are.
satisfying, don't you think?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw this tweet recently.
Yeah.
It's written by a guy. And he said, "This country needs strong masculine energy right now. More than ever," he says. "We're on the brink of a feminist apocalypse." Although with Trump, he says, we may have just narrowly avoided it.
What?
And a woman responded this way: "Dear women, initiate feminist apocalypse."
Let's do that.
So I am wearing this hoodie with Stand With Ukraine embedded in this beautiful design with flowers and the Ukrainian trident as part of my suit of armor for the feminist apocalypse. Because as we say here on this island, when women show up, shit happens.
That's right. WW shush.
Yes,
Now I need a
WW
hoodie.
shush. WW shush. WW shush. Yes.
Well, I need a hoodie now.
Yes,
Sue.
you do need a hoodie.
So where can I get one?
So you go to bonfire.com
Okay.
and you search Stand With Ukraine.
Okay, I'm gonna do it right now.
Okay, go. And while you're at bonfire.com, you can
right.
also search Island of Discarded Women, and because we have hoodies too.
Okay, got it. I'll get both.
Get both.
I'll get
We need lots of hoodies. Okay, good. Okay, about this hoodie. So I bought this 3 years ago, the first time Natalie Nowytski was on our show. And Natalie is a part of Follow the Firefly tonight. And she turned me on to the artist who created this. Oh, here she is right now. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Sue.
It's the very Natalie Nowytski, everybody. Yay.
Thank you.
So yes, Natalie, you turned me on to this design, and I bought this 3 years ago. My husband's wearing one as well. And tell me, this was a woman that you are aware of, and she's a Ukrainian artist.
She is. She's
Yeah.
originally from Lviv, now lives in New York, and she's this incredible illustrator, muralist. And she created this design 3 years ago when, right around the time that the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine happened. And she put that up as a fundraiser for troops in Ukraine.
Yeah. Her T-shirts and her hoodies, and they now have onesies, are still for sale at bonfire.com. Currently, the funds are going to the nonprofit called Revived Soldiers Ukraine. Now, Natalie, you are a very integral part of Follow the Firefly, our musical guest tonight, which we will hear from very, very soon. But first, you are an Ukrainian American.
Yes.
And I asked you if you could share a song to help pay tribute to Ukraine and their ongoing war and all of that. And so the song you're going to sing, you wrote.
That's right.
Yeah, tell us about it.
So this song, it is actually from a poem that my great-grandmother wrote in 1945 while she was waiting to find out her and her family's fate in a German displacement camp. So my family had fled World War II, both the Nazis and the Soviets. And so my great-grandmother, along with her daughter and her daughter's kids, including my mom, were all in that camp and awaiting arrival to North America. And in this poem, she describes this sound that's coming out of these camps. And at first, it sounds like it might be wildlife, but no, it turns out it's not wildlife. It's the sound of women shrieking, searching for their sons.
Wow.
And it's a very personal poem for her because, as it turns out, when she and her daughter and her son were running from Ukraine, running from the Soviets and the Nazis, she lost track of her son, who was 11 years old at the time.
Wow.
And she had so much guilt about that and was so absolutely in grief, as you can imagine. This was just as much her story as it was all the other women in the camp.
Yeah, right. You were saying that it has, that there's actually a happy ending. Well, or a more positive ending to the story itself.
Yeah. So although my great-grandmother was never reunited with her son, she did find out many, many decades later that he had survived.
Okay. Yeah.
He was still in Ukraine, and as an 11-year-old, he was actually captured by the Soviets and was sent to a men's labor camp. And so he worked there for a good 10 years before he was released from there.
Wow.
So she knew that he was alive, but he,
Right.
it's unimaginable what he had experienced.
No, of course, at 11 years old. Yeah.
But later on, in their old age, her son and her daughter, my grandmother, were reunited.
Oh.
So they did get to see each other one last time.
Yeah. All right. Well, here is Natalie Nowytski and her beautiful song.
Понад морем у сивім тумані душе рвіно чайки кичуть, припадають на хвилі в шуканні, наче діток загублених кличуть. Ау, ау, Тум, шум, тум, шум, тум, шум, тум, шум. На 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 Загублених кличуть, кличуть, по таборах синів шукають, синів шукають. Не чайки, то над морем літають, матері у чаду розпуки, по таборах синів шукають. Залобивши скорботно руки, довгі ночі без сну пролинуть, думи мрії серце крають. Чи живий, чи може й загинув, чи добрався до рідного краю. Хто не йде, і усе стається голос, ріст, ясні очі сина доганяє, що подивитися, чи не рідна хто йде дитина.
Natalie Nowytski. Oh, my word, Natalie. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now, please welcome our guest storyteller for tonight, Aamera Siddiqui. Take it away, Aamera.
Oh my gosh, wasn't Natalie amazing? Wow. Anyway, hi. It is such a pleasure to be here on this island of discarded women because I am a woman. Don't worry, I'm totally qualified to be. Yeah, I have been a woman for over 5 decades, so I have the necessary experience and qualifications. Right, why am I going on about qualifications and experience? Well, in case it's not clear, I'm not just a woman. I am a woman of color. No, it's true. Yeah. And in my lifetime of experience as a woman of color, I am often accused of being a diversity hire. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And not being qualified for the job. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I am totally qualified to be a diversity hire. Yeah, and for the job. So, in my time here tonight, I'd like to talk to you about the perks of being a diversity hire. Right. Now, growing up, my father, rest his soul, was always on my case to get good grades. If I got a 96 on a bio test, he would say, "What happened to the other 4 points, huh?" But he was qualified to do this because he was an Indian dad and we have a different grading system. Yeah. A is acceptable, B is bad, C, can't have any dinner, D, don't come home, and F, find another family. Yep, so the pressure to work hard and excel was a constant in my life. Dad, this isn't fair. Other parents don't put this kind of pressure on their kids. To which he replied, "You are a Muslim woman with brown skin. You will have to work 3 times harder than your friend Jenny, and also the other friend Jenny, to be taken seriously in the workplace." Well, thanks for the encouragement, Dad. I'm so excited about my future now. Well, on my first day in my first job in 1991, I would learn that my dad was right when a coworker stopped by my office. "Hi, I'm Rebecca." That wasn't her real name, but that's what we'll call her. "Hi, Rebecca. It's so nice to meet you." "Well, things going good so far?" "Yeah, they are." "Yeah, well, I just wanted to see with my own eyes who they hired." That would be me. No offense. Uh-oh. We all know what no offense means. I just think it's important that you know that you were hired because you are a woman of color. I am? I was? Yeah. My brother, who is very qualified, was passed over for this job because he's a white male. For this job? The Multicultural Awareness Coordinator? And I want to say so much right now, like, hey, what makes you think that I am not qualified, huh? I've lived in 5 countries, in 3 continents. I speak 3 languages. I have a master's friggin' degree from Penn State University that I got when I was 21. I've written articles and given many presentations on multiculturalism. But of course, I didn't say any of that. I mean, she'd accuse me of trying to prove something, even though that's exactly what she was making me do, right? Yeah. Plus, I'm thinking, maybe Rebecca is an anomaly. I am sure she's the only one that thinks this way. Yeah, I was wrong. For the next 4 years I was there, I was told often that I was hired because I was diverse, and that there were normal Americans that applied but didn't get hired, and that qualifications were starting to take a backseat to diversity. And it wasn't like I wasn't accomplishing anything. You know, I raised grant funds and I started a program that brought intercultural ambassadors from around the world to schools in rural southeast Minnesota. And the governor at the time even presented the program with an award for being a star program. But none of that matters when you're a diversity hire. Okay, I know. I said I would talk about the perks, and none of this sounds like perks, but I'm getting to that, I promise. I got to the point where I kept a copy of my resume close by just in case I needed to prove myself. And that brings me to the first perk of being a diversity hire. You always have an updated resume. Yeah, because not only do you want to be able to prove that you are indeed qualified for the job that you were hired for, the one you went through an entire interview and application process for, but also because you're constantly looking to escape to another job, and your resume is ready when that time comes. Now, throughout my career in various jobs, this ignorance-based phenomenon would continue, but it would take on different tones and shapes. Like, for example, 10 years later, I was in another job. Diversity was trending, and I was hired to be the diversity coordinator at a private school. Wait, I'm pretty sure that job is illegal now. Oh, crap. I think all of my jobs are illegal now. Multicultural awareness coordinator, diversity coordinator, equity, diversity, inclusion consultant, intercultural development specialist. These are all illegal DEI jobs. My resume is literally a rap sheet. Anyway, 10 years later in this illegal DEI job, there was a much different energy about me being hired. And strange things started to happen right away. Like, for some reason, I didn't have a job description. And when I asked about it, I was told by my supervisor, well, that's in process, but until we come up with that, we'd like you to be a presence. A presence? Okay. Yes, we'd like you to be visible. Visible. All right, yes. We were thinking you could stop in and say hi in the classrooms and maybe introduce yourself, walk around the halls and say hi to students. Walk around and say hi. Yes, be a visible presence. You could attend meetings. Oh, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Any particular meetings? Yes, any meetings. Would you like me to do anything at these meetings? Like give a talk, lead a discussion, brainstorm areas of change? Change? Oh, for now, we just want you to attend the meetings and be a presence. Yes, I get it. Well, that explains why I didn't have a job description. They were afraid that if they put it in writing, I might actually change things. So that brings me to my second perk of being a diversity hire, which is you acquire decoding skills. You know, you learn to see these nonsensical, uninformed statements for what they are. They just wanted me to walk around town being brown. Yeah, I was a token. Well, a few days later, when I was carrying out my duties of walking around town being brown, A colleague greeted me with great enthusiasm. We're going to call her Rebecca. Hey, I have nothing against anyone named Rebecca. One of my best friends is a Rebecca. Oh my gosh, you're here! We did it! We got you hired! A woman of color! And that brings me to the third perk of being a diversity hire. If I were to ever forget that I am a woman of color, I will most certainly be reminded. Mm-hmm. You are going to do great things here. Oh, thank you, because right now I'm just walking around. We really needed someone like you here. You know, there were a few people who were all hung up on the whole people should be hired based on their merit and qualifications, but most of us wanted you, and we got you hired. And this is where I pulled out my resume, and I said, Rebecca, read this resume. I have the merit and qualifications. Did you not read my extremely well-written cover letter? My letters of recommendations, my transcripts? I graduated with honors. And then I reached into my bag and I pulled out my first diploma, and then I pulled out my second diploma, and okay, I didn't do any of that because I didn't have my bag. Plus, I needed this job, and I just smiled and said, thank you for all the hard work you put into getting me hired, because I apparently had nothing to do with that shit. I didn't actually say that last part. I mean, she couldn't tell that I was gritting my teeth because of the fourth perk of being a diversity hire, the art of restraint. You learn to be stoic through the bullshit, right? Yep. Through the put-downs that sound like compliments. And this restraint should not be confused with weakness. No. This restraint allows you to strategize while well-intentioned people run their mouth and then put their foot in it. Rebecca, wasn't the person in this position before me also a woman of color? Yes, but she only lasted a year. She wasn't a good fit. Ha! Not a good fit decoded means she shook things up. Really, not a good fit. Yeah, she was just so angry. And what was she angry about? Oh, you know, racism, inequities, discrimination. So her anger about those things wasn't a good fit? Well, it wasn't what she was saying, it was how she said it. Oh. Well, I'm not saying you shouldn't be angry about those things. You see how the foot and mouth thing is playing out? Yeah. Well, on another one of my walks around town, another Rebecca chased me down the hall. Rosario! Wait, are you talking to me? I was wondering if we could schedule a meeting with the language department to discuss. I'm sorry. My name is Aamera. I'm not Rosario. Oh, you're the other one. The other one? She's the new Spanish teacher. Well, I'm not a Spanish teacher, but she's Mexican. I'm not Mexican. Well, what I mean is, we are trying to be diverse. Anyway, you look exactly like her. It's uncanny. I looked nothing like her. I mean, we were both brown, but for the next 4 years, I would continue to be confused for Rosario, the other one, and Rosario would also be mistaken for me. But we bonded over this experience of being each other's other one. And that brings me to the fifth perk of being a diversity hire. You find people who are experiencing what you are, and they hold you up and let you know that you're not crazy. You vent together, and you laugh and cry together, and 24 years later, Rosario and I are still friends. But the thing is, I actually care. I care about equity, diversity, and inclusion and belonging. And no laws are going to change that, right? You know, and back then I cared that the main entrance to this school was not wheelchair accessible. I cared that there were BIPOC and LGBTQ plus students, families, and employees in this community that felt so isolated. And this whole walk around town being brown thing was not working for me. So I did things to try to make this place a safer, more inclusive environment. And things started to change. Oh, and I got a lot of pushback from some vocal parents wanting to know why their children's education was being wasted on a liberal agenda. And there were students who complained that this diversity stuff is being shoved down our throats. School is no place for equity. Why do we have to read literature about civil rights, women's rights, anyone's rights? Why can't we read normal American stuff by normal American writers like Shakespeare? Yep. And then, in my second year, the head of schools, we'll call him Rebecca, he was getting calls from parents who were angry about all this DEI stuff. Apparently, this anger was a good fit, because he called me into his office to see if I could try a different approach. Decoded, this means could I prioritize the comfort of cis, straight, able-bodied, wealthy white people when confronting racism, discrimination, lack of access, and inequities? And I told him, Rebecca, I welcome your suggestions. I mean, there isn't just one right way to do this work, but discomfort and pushback are to be expected. Yeah, well, I need you to find a way, you know? I'm thinking you need to find a way to make diversity sexy for the white males. What? Make it sexy for the boys. Well, how the fuck am I supposed to do that? What does that even mean, make diversity sexy for the white males? I mean, these are high school students we're talking about. That was his strategy, make diversity sexy for white males. And it took all of my power to breathe deeply and not scream. This man was intimidating and large, and he had a booming voice and always took up a lot of space. And he could fire me with a stroke of a pen, because the school's high-powered lawyers would back him up. But I just put this story on a Post-it in my brain, and I decided right then and there that I was going to leave that job. But not yet. I would wait for the students who relied on me as their safe person to graduate first. I would take the next 2+ years to secure enough finances to make my exit possible, and I started writing down stories. The Make Diversity Sexy story, the Walk Around Town Being Brown story, countless stories. And this is the final perk of being a diversity hire, the stories. As a diversity hire, you collect so many stories. Enough stories to start your own theater company. And so, when I left my position, I co-founded a theater company with my bestie, Susie Messerol, who's here tonight, called Exposed Brick Theater. We're in our 20th year. We are a theater company that's dedicated to telling untold stories, centering omitted narratives, and creating art at the intersection of identities. And the first person I hired was myself. Yeah, as a diversity hire. Because that's what's needed for the job. And because I'm qualified. And if you don't believe me, I have a rap sheet to prove it. Thank you.
Aamera Siddiqui! Aamera Siddiqui! The amazing Aamera Siddiqui!
Thank you.
Aamera Siddiqui, thank you so much, Aamera. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now please welcome Follow the Firefly.
My inescapable, ridiculous self followed me here, followed me here. My inescapable, ridiculous self followed me here. My inescapable, mortifying self followed me here, followed me here. My inconsolable, desperate self followed me here. I thought I'd take her off and set her down and leave her behind. I thought I'd take her off and set her down and leave her behind. My inescapable, ridiculous self followed me here, followed me here. My inexplicably fragile self followed me here. My inescapable, mortifying self followed me here, followed me here. My inconsolable, desperate self followed me here. I thought I'd close the door, turn the key, and finally be free. I thought I'd close the door, turn the key, and finally be free. My inescapable, ridiculous self followed me here, followed me here. My inexplicably fragile self followed me here. My inescapable, mortifying self followed me here, followed me here. My inconsolable, desperate self followed me here. I thought I'd walk away, cross the bridge, and be the new me. I thought I'd walk away, cross the bridge, and be the new me. My inescapable, ridiculous self followed me here, followed me here. My inexplicably fragile self followed me here. My inescapable, mortifying self followed me here, followed me here. My inconsolable, desperate self followed me here. I thought if I could just get rid of her, I could turn into someone amazing. I could turn into someone amazing. Some kind of miraculous alchemical transformation. Oh, inescapable, ridiculous self, darling, come here, darling, come here. Oh, inexplicably fragile self, darling, come here. Oh, inescapable, mortifying self, darling, come here, darling, come here. Oh, inconsolable, desperate self, darling, come here. Let me pick you up, embrace you, and never let go. Let me pick you up, embrace you, and never let go. Oh, inescapable, ridiculous self, darling, come here, darling, come here. Oh, inexplicably fragile self, darling, come here. Oh, inescapable, mortifying self, darling, come here, darling, come here. Oh, inconsolable, desperate self, darling, come here. Let me listen, let me understand, let me feel it for real. Let me listen, let me understand, let me feel it for real. Oh, inescapable, ridiculous self, darling, come here, darling, come here. Oh, inexplicably fragile self, darling, come here. Oh, inescapable, mortifying self, darling, come here, darling, come here. Inconsolable, desperate self, darling, come here. Let us go into the sacred glow, slowly to heal. Let us go into the sacred glow, slowly to heal. Oh, unconditionally lovable self, you're welcome here, you're welcome here. Oh, unconditionally lovable self, holding you dear. Oh, unconditionally lovable self, you're welcome here, you're welcome here. Oh, unconditionally lovable self, holding you dear. You and I are in this together, and oh, to be alive is amazing. Oh, life is amazing, full of miraculous everyday transformation.
Thank you. Follow the Firefly, follow the Firefly. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, thank you. So Phala, now you told me that you first wrote the beginning of this song.
Yes.
And then 6 years later, you revisited it and wrote the rest.
Exactly. I wrote the first, half of it probably at a time when my whole life was changing. And I think I kind of just optimistically allowed for the possibility that maybe I could just sort of shed the wincy or cringy or, oh, that's me, parts of me. And just sort of, just like a lizard sheds her skin and just kind of, whoop, I'm free, off I go. And it didn't work that way. So, yes, the first half was written kind of in that moment of disappointed realization that it didn't work that way.
And then,
6 years later, I kind of had this point where it was like, it was time to come back to this song.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about art is that if you look at the whole song, you would think, oh, this woman had a shift in perspective, and then she wrote a song about it. No, this woman knew she needed to write a song, and so she wrote the song, and through the creative process of writing the song, her perspective shifted. And then the song is kind of left behind as this kind of like an artifact, like a crystallized form left from that creative process.
a lizard skin.
Exactly, yes. There you have it.
No, you told me we were talking about this earlier. You said you had to be a human for longer to gain a new perspective. Isn't that true? Now, you two, Natalie and Phala, you met singing Balkan music.
We did.
And then the three of you became a trio about 4 years ago. Phala, you've also written what you call musical haikus. Now, some of them are actually traditional haikus, the 17 syllables in 3 lines, 575. But others are more haiku-ish, haiku-light. And you're going to do a few of those for us right now. In fact, this first one is an actual haiku.
Yes, we had been talking about our musical haikus. Oh, it's like a Polaroid snapshot kind of thing. It's like a haiku. And I was like, I could just write a haiku. So I did write a haiku. And this one is on the topic of the menopausal hot flash. Which, full disclosure, is a new experience for me this fall. Whoa, who knew?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Here it comes again. I am my own inferno. Wait, this will subside.
Right? Don't we all feel that way? Right?
Here it comes again. I am my own inferno. Wait, this will subside.
Okay, who needs to peel? I need to start peeling right now, huh?
Here it comes
seriously.
again. I am my own.
Okay, stop. I only have a hoodie on. Okay, love it. Okay, now the next song you're going to do, they're more in that realm of a haiku. They're more the haiku-ish ones.
So this moment was captured the day after my boyfriend's best friend's bachelor party. I was probably in early 20s, maybe 22. And then the second song was written 20 years after that. My lover licked a stripper last night. That's right. It's always the very last thing you would expect that gets you down and leaves you crying in the parking lot, wishing there was a way that love didn't have to be so hard. That love didn't have to be so hard. So fear is stronger than love, and men are disappointing. After 40 years, you'd think I would know this. Thank you. So we just have one more. This is another one of our haiku-ish ones. It's called Alone is Better Than Wrong. True, right? I mean, that's true. Thank you. Is love that fragile, or was illusion that strong? For now again I feel as though I'm staying where I don't belong. Alone is better than wrong, but what if I'm wrong?
Follow the Firefly. Phala Tracy, Natalie Nowytski. They will be back. They will be back for one more song. Yes, they will.
I don't give domestic vibes, I guess. Well, people assume I wouldn't want to be married with a child at my age. They assume because I am young and ambitious, I wouldn't choose to have things that tie me down. And yes, I have been told that my husband and child tie me down. Well, no. I can be a wife and mother and still be adventurous, determined, tenacious, and energetic. You know, human.
Oh, am I safe to assume that I don't know about you and you don't know about me? Can we agree that it isn't true until it's been proven? Societal corruption pins me guilty by assumption. I'm guilty by your assumptions.
So, because I am the eldest daughter in a more traditional Hmong household, family members assume I will be the first at an event to start on the food, first to extend a hand when someone needs a babysitter, or assume that I married a man who can lead me. Well, listen here. If I am first at an event, it is to help my mother, not because I am fulfilling my duty as the eldest daughter. If I am offering to babysit, it's because I want to help and have the time. And surprise, I don't always have the time. And my husband doesn't lead me anywhere. You know why? Because I'm not lost.
Oh, am I safe to assume that I don't know about you and you don't know about me? Can we agree that it isn't true until it's been proven? Societal corruption pins me guilty by assumption.
So that prayer service in D.C. the day after the inauguration, Bishop Marion Buddy. Right, yes. And at the end of her sermon, she asked the president to find mercy for those who may be scared right now, based on the president's promises. And the response, of course, was, how dare she single out the president with that nasty tone and ask him to find mercy. She needs to apologize. No, she said, she wasn't going to apologize for asking that mercy and empathy be shown to those who are our neighbors. Recently, another pastor shared a story of delivering a sermon one Sunday. And after church, a parishioner said to him, you know, you really need to get rid of all those liberal talking points in your sermon. You know, not everybody in this church agrees with your politics. And the pastor said, I'm sorry, what liberal talking points are you referring to? And the guy goes, you know, all that stuff about turning the other cheek and everything. And the pastor says, that's from the Sermon on the Mount. I was sharing Jesus' words from the Sermon on the Mount. And the parishioner says, oh, well, we're not doing that anymore.
Open up your eyes, you will be surprised that people are not always what they seem. Open your mind to the human divine, the infinite cosmic complexities. So don't assume that you know what I do and you know how I feel. If life is an abstraction, what makes it real?
As I've mentioned before, my father was a Methodist minister. And growing up, it was instilled in us to care about others and empathize with those who may not have what we have. During the Vietnam War, there was a time when our dinner every Wednesday night was a bowl of rice and some tea. Now, this was to put ourselves in the place of the children and the families in Vietnam who were being ravaged by this horrible war. It was an idea that came from the peace movement, and our church picked it up. And I loved that dinner. I mean, especially since my mother insisted we add a few peanuts to the rice, you know, for some protein. Plus, we could dump as much soy sauce on it as we wanted. But I totally got the point. And in a very small way, we were identifying with the families in Vietnam. I mean, there was the one night that a friend from school stayed for dinner on a Wednesday night and went home and told her mother that all she had at the Scotts was, rice and peanuts, which prompted a concerned call from her mom to my mom. And my mom explained and apologized that she wasn't given a heads up. And my friend's mother, of course, understood. If we did this meal today, I'm thinking we'd be eating something very simple that maybe war-affected families in Ukraine might be eating, or something that children in Gaza might be finding to eat. There is this overall sense right now from those who say they are Christians that caring for others in our society is weak or wasteful or woke. When I see the bullying tactics applied by billionaires to pressure national and international leaders to bend to their will, I think of the Sermon on the Mount. And when Jesus said, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And I assume, we're not doing that anymore.
Oh, am I safe to assume that I don't know about you and you don't know about me? Do we agree that it isn't true until it's been proven? Societal corruption pins me guilty by assumption.
Zippy Laske. Zippy Laske, Dae Yang. Please welcome back Follow the Firefly. Follow the Firefly. Now, you guys, this song that you're going to sing now is a traditional Bulgarian song.
Yeah, so this is a dance song called Liliano Mome, and the story is about a young man and a young woman who want to get married. And the young man has come to the young woman's window and is calling out to her, and it's her mother that comes out instead and says, "Liliana's not interested in you, you should go home." And Liliana yells from inside the house, "Actually, I'm going to marry him, so gesture of your choice."
Yeah. Follow the Firefly. Firefly. Thank you guys. That was so freaking cool. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, thank you.
Long live the king in his paper crown. It made me laugh out loud. You can't make this shit up. It's upside down over. The top feels like a movie, but it's not. And I once found it comical, but now it's everywhere I go. And now it hits too close to home. When you paint white on all the colors, speak who can and can't be lovers. You could say it's personal, yeah. You could say it's personal, then you go after my daughter's rights. Step down, be a good little wife. You could say it's personal, yeah. You could say it's personal.
I have a family member who voted for Trump and thinks that the cut on Medicaid won't affect them because it only affects immigrants. No, it affects everyone on Medicaid. You know, how exactly were you going to be excluded in this policy? You know, what about our grandparents who depend on Medicaid? Our nieces and nephews who depend on Medicaid? Did you think they'd be excluded? How? Why? None of us are excluded from these policies. America is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, and yet we can't even agree to prioritize a basic right such as healthcare for our own family. Cutting Medicaid? This is personal.
Are we in fact in a dreamland where monsters win and vampires grin, and we are all just lunch meat on the table? They're rich and fat and want a snack, so they'll dig in under our skin till all that's left of us are bones and fables. And you have been the star performer of this psycho thriller horror, slashing laws and killing order. Yeah, you paint white on all the colors, speak who can and can't be lovers. You could say it's personal, yeah. You could say it's personal, then you pin us against each other. God knows what you're trying to cover up. You could say it's personal, yeah. You could say it's personal.
The Department of Education was established as a cabinet-level department by Jimmy Carter. In October 1979, Congress passed the Department of Education Organization Act, Public Law 96-88. The number one declared purpose for this department was to strengthen the federal commitment to ensuring equal access to educational opportunity for every individual. Again, that's ensuring access to equal educational opportunities. Now, if the states were already providing equal access to education for children with disabilities or to those living in underserved areas, why would this department even be needed? It was needed because the states were not providing this access. Abolishing the Department of Education because it's wasteful and, the states can take care of it is wrong. They won't. It's too expensive to do on their own. As a sibling of a beautiful younger brother who was born with a disability and died way too young, giving equal educational access to those with disabilities is personal for me. Abolishing the Department of Education, that's personal.
Paint white on all the colors. Speak who can and can't be lovers. You could say it's personal, yeah. You could say it's personal, then you pin us against each other. God knows what you're trying to cover up. You could say it's personal, yeah. You could say it's personal. How did it all come down to this? Why are people just cool with it? How did it all come down to this? Why are people just cool with it? How did it all come down to this? Why are people just cool with it? How did it all come down to this? I'm not cool with it. So yeah, you could say it's personal.
Zippy Laske, thank you so much. Very powerful. It's a brand new song. She finished that song yesterday. And Dae Yang, thank you, Dae Yang. Now please welcome my guest for the conversation, Marlene Johnson. Come on up, Marlene. Come on up. Marlene Johnson, everybody. Marlene Johnson. Oh, thank you for coming. I so appreciate you. Okay, so what's the start?
It's mutual.
Oh, well, thank you. Okay, so just for our podcast listeners, I'm just going to do a quick little bio, okay, for people who don't know you. Okay, because everybody knows you otherwise. So you were the first woman lieutenant governor of Minnesota, yes. Serving with Governor Rudy Perpich from 1983 to 1991. You're the co-founder of the Minnesota chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners and the Minnesota Women's Campaign Fund. You were the executive director and CEO of NAFSA, the Association of International Educators, for nearly 20 years. You are still on several international nonprofit advisory councils. In 1988, you were awarded the Royal Order of the Polar Star by the Kingdom of Sweden. Yes. And this past fall, you published your memoir, Rise to the Challenge, a memoir of politics, leadership, and love, which encapsulates your life-breaking political ground, your navigating patriarchal tradition, and persevering through great personal loss. Okay, so you grew up in Bram, Minnesota, and at the time, the population was 720 people. And the website says that in 1990, Bram was declared the homemade pie capital of Minnesota by Governor Rudy Perpich. So what, did he come over to your house and have pie or something?
No, he came to the Park Cafe on Main Street.
And they just decide it was like the pie capital?
Well, you know,
he does that.
Before 35 took us to Duluth from St. Paul.
Yeah.
People always came up Highway 65 right past Crooners.
Yeah.
And went up to Cambridge, and then they turned off on 70 to Braham, and they stopped at the Park Cafe for cherry pie or pumpkin pie, whatever kind of pie they wanted.
And it was
that was
known for
before
pie?
Toby's in Hibbing.
Oh.
There was the Park Cafe in Braham.
Oh, so is Toby's now the pie capital of the world? Or whatever it's
No,
called?
Braham is still the pie capital of Minnesota.
Oh, okay, all right. Does every state have a pie capital?
I don't know.
Okay.
You'll have to ask
Will
them.
someone work on that? That'd be great to let me know. Okay, you were an early organizer, an activist, and advocate. In grade school, you formed the Helping Hand Club to go and visit the elderly.
That's right.
Yeah, so you're in grade school. So what are you doing? You're just hanging out with the elderly? You're doing
That's
things
what
with
we
them?
did.
Yeah.
I had a very dear friend, Sophie,
Okay.
who lived in a little tiny house. It's still there. It was white then. It's now blue. And we had to walk by her house every day, so we stopped in to visit her. And then we started thinking we should do that for some other people too. So we did.
How fun. How cool is that? That is so terrific. And then in high school, you were nominated by the local American Legion Auxiliary for the first cohort of the Minnesota Girl State.
Girl State, yes.
So you go to McAllister, but the story that gets you into McAllister, tell that story.
Well, my dad took me to visit Fritz Mondale when he was Attorney General and to get some advice on where to go to college. And so, of course, Fritz was biased to McAllister.
Well, he married, Joan was the chaplain's daughter.
Exactly.
Go on.
And then I found out that McAllister at that time, it's hard to believe, required a foreign language in high school in order to apply to college. So I came home complaining that I couldn't apply to McAllister because Brigham didn't have a foreign language.
Yeah.
And my parents said, well, why don't you talk to the school board and ask them to add a language?
And you did.
So I did.
You did. And one of the coaches had minored in Spanish.
Exactly. So he thought it was a great opportunity to do something different. So they didn't have to hire a new faculty member.
Right.
So it was an easy...
Easy peasy.
Exactly.
How cool was that? And so then you got into McAllister. Now, when you're in McAllister, in 1966, you're part of the Young DFL organization. Now, I have to, for the podcasters, so DFL is the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. That's what we call our Democrats here in Minnesota. So, okay, the Young DFLers, you organized precinct caucuses.
Yes, it was the year that Sandy Keith, he was lieutenant governor, and he was running for the DFL nomination to run for governor against the incumbent governor, Karl Rolvac. And we were supporting Sandy. So we decided to organize for the precinct caucus, even though most of us could not participate because at that time you had to be 21 to vote.
Right.
Most of us were not 21 yet.
Yeah.
A few of us were. So, but we could organize and get people there, count votes, which we did.
Which you did, and he won the endorsement.
Sandy won the endorsement in our precinct.
Yes.
It turned out, however, the governor's chief staff person was Doug Kelm, and he lived in our precinct, which I didn't realize. That was quite an eye-opening experience.
And he wasn't happy.
He wasn't happy at all.
So
Have to go to work the next day and say that his precinct went for Sandy.
So he files a lawsuit.
He did.
He files a lawsuit challenging the outcome, saying that students
couldn't participate where they went to college.
Yeah.
And we had there was a court case, and that was my first political fundraising. But ultimately, what the most important outcome of this was that Nick Coleman, who was Majority Leader of the State Senate and my state senator later, he introduced a bill allowing students to participate where they went to college. And we were the first state in the country to do that.
Yes. And that's not there are still states that don't allow that.
That's right.
Yeah. So good for you. That was a big win. That's huge, 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 huge. Okay, so you start your own company.
It's an employment program for Marlene.
So it's like, oh, that's it. I know, I'll employ myself. Okay. So you start your own company. It's called Split Infinitive.
That's right. Advertising, public relations, and general brilliance.
And general brilliance. That was like that was their theme, general brilliance. You go, wow, like all the other companies, kind of so brilliance.
Apparently.
But we are general brilliance. So where is Split Infinitive? Where did that come from?
Well, my partner, Jeanette Wagner, was more skilled than I, and she thought it was amusing to use something that was an incorrect grammar.
Oh.
Just to get attention.
Oh, because, your communications marketing and that you're doing that. Oh.
Exactly. Sort of.
I get it.
Yeah.
So nowadays, IA would flag that as...
That's probably true.
You sure that's not correct? Okay. You were a woman-owned business.
We were.
And so you decided that your work holidays were going to be the birthdays of Eleanor Roosevelt and Shirley Chisholm.
Yes.
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 Okay, so now you're a business owner. You're becoming more of an entrepreneur. And you helped create the Minnesota chapter of the National Association of Women Business Owners. They didn't have chapters yet then.
They did not. They hardly had an organization at all. Susan Sands and I, we read an article about the creation of the National Association of Women Business Owners. And so we flew to Washington to go to the meeting and to tell them we wanted to be the first chapter outside of Washington. And Donna O'Bannon and Susan Hager, who became good friends, they said, well, our bylaws don't even allow for chapters. Do your own organization. And we said, no, you change your bylaws and allow for chapters because we want to be part of something bigger.
Yes, of course. It's time for change.
So Donna looked at me and decided it was easier to change the bylaws than to talk to me.
That's power, Marlene. That's power. Well, and it worked. So then this is all leading up to you meeting Rudy Purpich. This was the first time he was governor.
Well, the first time he was governor, he nominated the first woman to the Supreme Court, Rosalie Wall. Some of you will remember. Some of you are too younger to remember. So I did a fundraiser for him to thank him because I thought women needed to put their money where their mouth was and say, thank you, Governor. This was a very important appointment. At that time, Rose Berg of California and one other woman, I think, were the only women on state Supreme Courts. So having Rosalie was a very, very important step.
Well, and I know that the thing that you were saying about that appointment of Rosalie Wall, it really galvanized women's support for Purpich at that time.
Yes, it did.
Now, he runs for re-election, and he loses.
Yes.
And then in 1982, he decides to run again. And you wrote in your journal what?
If he wants to get elected, he'll call me.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I just think that's terrific that at that time, but it's not always easy for women to say, I'm going to put myself out into a space that, because you hadn't been in elected office before.
No, to be fair, I mean, part of what happened was that both parties had their conventions, and there was movement in the Republican Party to invite Nancy Bradis to be the running mate. She was a very strong, competent, talented state senator from Rochester, business owner. She would have been a terrific candidate, and they rejected her.
Yeah.
And Warren Spanis was encouraged to pick Joan Grow, who was our very popular Secretary of State, and he couldn't handle that. So there was a lot of public conversation about the fact that the parties were not being open and supportive of women.
Yeah.
And Rudy felt that that was a competitive advantage for him if he chose a woman running mate.
Yeah.
So the news stories that week in June of '82 were naming some women. And they were all urban women, Joan Grow and Linda Berglund and a few other people, all of whom were friends of mine. And that's when I wrote in my journal, if he wants to win, he'll pick me, because I felt that I knew the state better than they did.
Yeah.
That urban politicians in general have a disadvantage statewide. And small town me, I had traveled...
Pie capital. She was from the pie capital.
Yes, and I had organized women business owners around the state, and I'd been the women's political caucus around the state, so I knew the state pretty well.
And he said yes. He did pick you.
He did.
And he said if you were elected, you would be the first woman lieutenant governor of the state. And at 37, you would have been the youngest, or you would be the youngest if you got elected. And he wanted you to focus on expanding opportunities for women and people of diverse ethnicities and to help promote tourism as an economic driver. When he was lieutenant governor, he had no jobs.
During the time he was lieutenant governor, he did not have one private conversation with Governor Anderson.
Yeah. So he comes in going, I'm not going to do that. But the fact that he did want to expand the opportunities for women and people of color, but you got pushback from some DFL women for saying yes to Purpich.
Yeah, I mean, we only won the primary by 25,000 votes, and we were outspent 10-1. The party spent $1 million, which seems like nothing now, but that was a lot of money then. And we spent $100,000. In Minnesota, we still have an open primary here, so people can cross over. So it was assumed that many Republican women crossed over and voted for our ticket because of me being on the ticket.
Yeah, right.
And, the Democratic Party women were very upset because they had a lot invested in Spanis.
Yeah. Okay, so you're in. There was one point in your book you talk about how Rudy said to you, how do you do this without a husband?
Yeah. Yeah. The first time, I still remember when he said it the first time to me, and I thought, oh, that's a real sexist thing to say.
Yeah.
But as I got to know him, I really appreciated something that I hadn't understood at the time, which was how close he and Lola were.
Oh, yeah.
And that what he was really saying was that he counted on that person to be there at night to process things with him.
Yeah.
It wasn't only to pack his suitcase. Although I think that, as I said to him, I think that's a big advantage because he didn't have to leave work early to go pack, which I did. But I think it was more that he had somebody he really trusted to be there and also not to share whatever he said.
Yeah. So you win, And you helped diversify the state boards. You created a children's agenda, which was very unique in state government at that time. You established new relationships in tourism and culture. You oversaw building upgrades like the new site of the Minnesota Historical Society, the History Center. Then in 1983, you hosted a delegation from Sweden.
I did.
And they were trade and business leaders. And your idea was to take them to dinner and then go to a concert of the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra.
Well, actually, I only had the meeting because the governor couldn't do it in the last minute. They were supposed to meet with the governor, and then an hour or two before the meeting, something happened down in the West Wing, so I was asked to do the meeting.
You're in, because you're the lieutenant governor.
Lucky me.
Yeah.
Turned out.
So you're like, okay, well, let's go see this concert. And in the delegation was a man named Peter Frankel.
That's right.
And he has his own consulting business in Sweden, and he was part of the delegation as an advisor. And Perpich came to dinner, right? But he couldn't go to the concert.
He actually decided that he wanted to meet all these Swedes, so he would do a dinner on Saturday at the residence.
Okay.
And it would be before we went to the chamber orchestra concert. But he wouldn't do it if I wouldn't agree to come to dinner because Lola was out of town, and he wouldn't host a dinner by himself. Had to have somebody sit at the other end, you know. So that was no problem. So I went to dinner, and, you know, at the beginning of the dinner, the host raises a glass to do a toast. And Rudy raises his glass, and he said to the group, welcome. And then he said, my goal is to get her married. I thought I was going to kill him. I mean...
No, you say in your book, I was horrified.
I'm glad I used that language in the book instead. Yeah.
Yeah. However... An attraction did begin between you and Peter Frankel.
That's right.
Then it became a long-distance relationship, finally blooming into an intercontinental marriage in 1988. And you were still lieutenant governor at the time, and Peter still had his consulting business in Sweden. And so you traveled back and forth.
Well, we did. People would say, how can you do that? And the option was not getting together, because he had a business that was established and I was a politician. I wasn't going to leave my job.
Right.
And he wasn't going to leave his business. Although he did try to build some business in Minnesota, that part wasn't as successful as he'd hoped. And so we just decided we'd figure out a way to make it work.
Which you did. And then, so in the meantime, your second term is coming to a close, and Perpich is deciding whether to run for a third time.
Right.
And you're not so sure that that's a good idea.
No, the last year wasn't so good. Those who were around will remember. And we didn't feel it was winnable, I guess.
Yeah.
And so there was, a lot of people felt he shouldn't run again, and he insisted on doing it. And so I had to decide to run or not run, and I chose to run with him.
Yeah. And ultimately you did not win.
No, we did not win.
Right. And so now what to do next? So you end up in D.C., because you're appointed as the Associate Administrator for Management Services and Human Resources for the General Services Administration. Wow. For Bill Clinton, your husband is still in Sweden, but you're going back and forth. And then in 1997, you're hired as the Executive Director and CEO of NAFSA.
Yes.
The Association of International Educators, which is, I'll just read this, which is the world's largest nonprofit association dedicated to international education and exchange. And you said it was a great fit for your leadership skills.
It was a perfect fit for me and for the organization. Some of our members are in the audience, so thank you.
Welcome, yes. Welcome.
It was great. It was the organization started right after the war when international students came to the U.S. in large part with the Fulbright program.
Okay.
And it grew from a small organization to what it was when I left of 100 employees. It was a ma and pa organization when I started, and we built it into a sophisticated activist organization with a strong public policy advocacy program, a great membership program, and an annual conference to which 10,000 people from around the world attended, and it was just a fabulous opportunity.
And you were there for almost 20 years.
Just under 20 years, yes.
So you're going back and forth, and you've got this thing where you're 3 weeks in D.C., and then you're 10 days in Sweden, and you're going back and forth. You and Peter are spending time at your summer home. You have an apartment. Now, pronounce this for me, the name of the town in Sweden, the city in Sweden.
In Lund?
Is it Lund?
Lund,
okay.
yeah.
So I said Lund.
If you said Lund, Swedes would know what you meant.
Okay. They wouldn't be happy, but they
It's
go,
okay.
yeah. Lund, okay. And then in mid-August of 2010, he has a terrible fall in the middle of the night. And it resulted in a traumatic brain injury.
Right.
Drastically altering his life for the next 9 years.
Yes. Well, he was in a coma for 2 weeks, and then he didn't recover.
Yeah.
By January, we knew he had to live the rest of his life in a nursing home.
You talk about, throughout your book and throughout your life, how often you learn to pivot or punt. And that running for office and all these different things, you were able to adapt your leadership skills for those new situations. And now you say this was a time dealing with Peter's injury because he could no longer speak or take care of himself at all. And becoming an advocate in a healthcare system in Sweden that you're not familiar with, you called it a huge pivot. A huge pivot was needed.
Well, it was the first thing that happened was that I realized for the first time in my life, of all the time I'd spent in Sweden, I had never been there without Peter as my culture guide.
Yeah, right.
I'd been there a lot, but I didn't have to make any major decisions because he was in charge of our life in Sweden and I was in charge of our life here.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I was in charge of my life in Sweden. I had never even slept in the apartment by myself, if you can believe that, in Sweden. And then as we were in the hospital and then ultimately in the nursing home and the change, I was experiencing what it meant to be a family member in a healthcare system in which everyone has the same healthcare system in society, but that things like case managers show up. They just show up.
Huh.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah, right.
And I was, at the
How
time
novel.
this was happening to me, I had a friend in Washington who was going through the similar situation to me, but in the same town with her husband. First of all, she had to spend weeks researching to find a case manager, and then she had to pay very large sums of money for a case manager. And in my case, I'm sitting there having a conversation with the chief of neurology telling me that the decision is final, that Peter will not be able to come home. He will be living the rest of his life in a nursing home. And 2 minutes later, the nurse, who was in the same conversation with us, she says, by the end of the day, you will be contacted by the case manager. And I said, how much will I pay for that? And she said, you won't pay for it. They will just come and they will help you choose a nursing home and understand all the things that you have to do.
Yeah, wow.
And lo and behold, 2 hours later, the case manager called me and we met in person. And I mean, it was just like that. At every stage, there was somebody reaching out to me, understanding what I needed. And it was pretty special.
You share this conversation you had with a physical therapist of Peter's.
Yes.
You said that of all the possibilities that you and Peter had considered for your final years together, a situation like this had never occurred to either one of you. Right. And she said, and I'm going to actually quote her, she said, there is no one on this ward who has ever anticipated being here. If one could anticipate such a tragedy, it would be impossible to live each day. What makes it possible is that we face whatever situation confronts us when we open the door. And you found that really helpful, I bet.
I still remember where I was sitting when I said those words to her and when she said those words to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a really powerful.
Because it's
reminder.
true. It's like, oh, if only. No, we can if only.
No, and you don't get to choose, which is our challenge.
Right.
Many times people have said to me, oh, I would rather this than that. And I said, well, it's a good thing that you and I don't get to choose which burden we have. We just deal with the challenge that comes to us.
Right. There's another quote from a close friend of yours at one point when I think there was still possibly some hope. And she said to you, Peter is working as hard as he can, as he always has, and with what he has. And you said that clarity was very comforting to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's like, no, he's trying with what he has, being so disabled from this injury.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I learned over time, because he couldn't speak to me, so he would find other ways to communicate with me. And I would always ask his permission if I was going to read a book so he could take a nap. And then he'd wake up from a nap and I'd still be reading the book and he'd go, throw his arm against me and I'd say, is it time for me to stop reading the book? Yes. You want to see photos of the family? Yes. He could say yes and no, and so I have to come up with questions to ask him that would give him a chance to say yes or no. And there are days when you just feel sorry for yourself, even though you don't want to. You're just tired and you feel sorry for yourself. And it's very important to be reminded that, in this case, Peter was doing his part.
Yes, exactly. He passes away in 2019, so about 9 years after the fall. You talk about how the pandemic sort of gets in the way of what maybe you were hoping could happen as far as cleaning things up and services and all that kind of thing. And how you had to go through saying goodbye to Sweden, having had that relationship, because you were still working.
I had retired before he died, but for the first 5 years, I was working from Sweden 1 week a month. So I was doing remote work as an executive before we had the name.
Yeah, right.
But I had a very supportive board, a chairperson who's here tonight. The organization was doing well, and the management team was very talented and committed. And so I worked from Sweden 1 week a month. So I could be with Peter and monitor his care and then use the telephone and other ways to communicate when I was in Washington.
Yeah. So now, what do you do next? And you start writing a memoir.
Early in January of 2020, I called my friend Pauline Boss, who was here tonight. To tell her that Peter had died. And she said, "You have to write about this. I don't know anybody who's done it for quite as long and in such a situation, cross-culturally, as you have." I waited. It took me 2 or 3 months before I could get my head around the idea of writing. It was COVID, but finally I realized that writing was a very good way to deal with COVID.
Sure.
So I wrote about 50 pages, and I shared it with Pauline, and she said, "I don't have time to read 50 pages. I'm trying to finish my own book." And so she promised to read 10 pages. And I left lunch with her and went to the airport, got back to Washington, and by the time I woke up the next morning, Pauline had written me an email that said, "I read the full 50 pages. You're a good writer. You just need to tell your whole story because otherwise this 50 pages doesn't make sense." The most important thing she said to me was, "You're a good writer." I realized I'd spent most of my life, all of my life, since I was in college, believing I could not write.
Yeah.
So the moment I read her words, that negativity left my body.
Yeah.
And I sat down and I kept writing.
Yeah.
And when I got to 300 pages, I decided I had a book.
I want to end with your first inaugural address in 1983. And the last line of your address is this: "When one of us does something that hasn't been done before, it changes things for all of us."
Right.
It's true. It's the trailblazers and the glass ceiling breakers like you who will go down in the history books, right? And you'll be the first. But you're right. Breaking through that means you're the first, but now the road's been paved for the next and the next and the next. So I thank you for that. Thank you. Marlene Johnson, thank you so much,
Thank you
Marlene.
very much.
Thank you so much. Marlene Johnson, everybody. Thank you so much. And that's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you to Marlene Johnson. One more time, please. Yes. And Follow the Firefly. Phala Tracy, Natalie Nowytski, Scott Keever, Dae Yang, Zippy Laske, Aamera Siddiqui. Aamera Siddiqui. I want to thank Erica Cook and our engineer, John Robinson, and our amazing volunteers, Suzanne Egley and Doug Anderson. Bonnie Allen, thank you for taking our pictures. Thank you to the staff at Critter Supper Club. And a big thank you to our sponsors for tonight, all of our Give to the Max donors, and Nancy Scott and David O'Connor. Please visit our website at islandofdiscardedwomen.com and learn all about our upcoming shows and about our episodes. We will be back very soon with another live Island of Discarded Women. Thank you, everybody. I'm Sue Scott. Good night. Thank you.